Woodland Hills suburbia, home of Marge and Dick Nelson.
Dick, don't drink from the carton.
Nothing unusual ever happens to them.
Bye.
But this weekend, they're taking a little trip.
Soon, Marge Nelson, you will be mine. Activate the magno-beam.
Now they're on their way
Scoot over a little. Oh, I want to get one of you in Saturn.
Don't take my picture. Don't take...
to the smallest, weirdest planet in the galaxy,
Bingo!
They're here.
where girls are fish,
What are these, your pets? Oh, I see. It's your family.
boys are dogs,
Ow! Get your paws off of me. Who's your supervisor?
and everyone else is just plain stupid.
Impressed?
Who would have thought that Marge and Dick
Marry me, Marge, and become the queen of Spengo.
would save the world?
Let me out of here!
Let me out of here.
I have information vital to the future of your planet and my own. Take the information and escape.
Punish him!
Finally, a motion picture that asks the age-old question, is there intelligent life in the universe?
You're welcome.
The answer is no.
Doors!
Terry Garr, Jeffrey Jones, Jon Lovitz, Kathy Ireland, and Eric Idle. Mom and Dad save the world.
You're a cute little fella.
Directed by Greg Beeman.
Rated PG.
Starts Friday, July 24th at a theater near you.
Welcome to They Call This a Movie, testing the strength of friendships one terrible movie at a time. Subscribe to the podcast and iTunes on podcast services by searching They Call This a Movie, and find us on Twitter and Instagram at TicTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. Welcome back to They Call This a Movie. This is Anthony Del Vecchio. With me as always is Dan Aquino and Mark Myers. Say hello, gentlemen.
Hey, friends.
Hello, everyone. One thing I realized while watching this movie is coming to terms with the idea that someone in this movie turned out to be a terrible person, and just reconciling, trying to not think about that while watching said movie. Same thing happens with, recent politics and sports and actors and stuff like that. It's
Mark,
like
I will not let you badmouth Danny Cooksey like that, all right? He is a fine young man.
Let's go more after Raw with Sean. No. But yeah, it was the first time I've had that where I was like, I think he did something really terrible. And I looked it up. I was like, oh yeah, he did.
About Sex Pest Jeffrey Jones.
Yep, Sex Pest Jeffrey Jones.
I've entered into full dad mode where every time something appears, I have to say what they're known for.
Was that what Jeffrey Jones's fun fact was?
Yeah, so when we put the movie on and he showed up, I turned to my wife and I said, Jeffrey Jones is a sex predator. She's like, yes, you tell me that every time we watch Beetlejuice.
I feel like past Christmases, anytime we watch Elf, I always point out where Ralphie from Christmas Story is.
Yes, he's one of the elves.
Yep, that's Ralphie from Christmas Story.
Yeah, I don't know. I get a lot of joy out of that and pointing out if an actor's been on The Wire.
Do you point out when Viggo Mortensen kicks the helmet and breaks his foot?
No, I don't do that. I'm not one of those people.
Is The Wire the new Sopranos for actors?
Oh,
I mean, they came around at the same time, so I don't know if you call it the new.
Well, I mean, maybe it's Dan's version of The Sopranos.
Yeah.
No,
People be like, hey, see that guy in Bruce Springsteen's band? He was in The Sopranos.
Yeah. To me, I could be wildly off base here, but I always thought The Wire was more popular than The Sopranos, but I could be wrong.
No.
I think The Sopranos is a cultural phenomenon. The Wire is the show that people that want to seem smart will tell you is the best show on television.
Okay.
Yeah. I think The Sopranos has more widespread appeal than The Wire. I think there's going to be a lot more people that are just like, you know what, and myself included, who are just like, I tried to get into it, and it's just too much.
The Sopranos.
The Wire.
Okay. My reasoning behind it was I see more actors that were in The Wire in other shows or movies, right?
Well, yeah, because like everyone in Sopranos is Italian American, so unless you're watching a mob movie, you're probably not seeing a whole lot of crossover.
Fair enough.
Yeah, I guess my one would be pointing out the people when actors from Oz show up in Law and Order.
Sure. Yeah, I think
they shared a casting director or something.
Sure. Yeah, that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yeah, HBO shares a lot of the same actors, though they will show up in reoccurring shows.
It's not TV, it's HBO.
Well, it's Max now, I guess.
I guess.
Does HBO still exist? I don't have cable. I'm assuming it does. All right.
Well, when House of the Dragon comes on, the HBO insignia pops up, so I guess it's still HBO.
I think HBO is still a thing.
Okay.
If you look at the Emmy nominees, you would think broadcast television doesn't exist.
As far as I'm concerned, it doesn't.
Yeah.
Well, we were,
or even basic cable.
Does Mark Harmon still have a show?
Probably.
We were talking about it at work where a friend of mine was saying how they listen to the radio, like terrestrial radio. That's still a thing. You still listen to the radio. So all of these things are slowly leaving. It sounds like.
Yeah.
People who buy the paper, people who listen to radio, people who watch cable TV. Yeah. It's slowly making its way out.
As the boomers die, is basically because like everything you just said is like, oh, my dad does that, my dad does that, my dad does that.
Yeah, pretty soon the last bastion, the last person will just die off, and then that'll be it for all of them.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Well, besides that, I don't even remember what we were talking about, but we had a movie this week, and this week was my pick, and I went with a movie that I haven't seen in about 30 years, actually. And I've seen this movie quite a bit because it used to play on HBO a whole lot. This kind of fills the same kind of space that Stay Tuned that we covered with John Ritter covered for me. Movie that was always on HBO. And that movie this week is Mom and Dad Save the World from 1992. And I loved this movie as a kid, and as an adult, I still kind of loved it, if I'm being 100% with you.
Sure.
I had a great time with this. I didn't think I was going to enjoy it as much as I did this time. But really, what it comes down to is Jon Lovitz. He's so good in this movie.
Yeah.
He's so over the fucking top. Just every line reading is just so good. And every time he speaks, I just think of another Simpsons character that he's played because they're all his voice.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a stupid movie. It's probably because all the people on the planet are stupid, but it's got Idiocracy vibes.
Yeah, pre-Idiocracy. Yeah.
Yeah, it's pre-Idiocracy vibes, but the set pieces aren't bad for this type of movie. Like the set decoration, the costumes are like kind of going above and beyond what you would expect from this movie. But yeah, I had a good time from Mom and Dad Save the World. So I want to see where you guys are coming from. So Dan, where are you coming from? Mom and Dad Save the World.
So to touch on a point that you mentioned, you saw this as a kid. Mm-hmm. And you loved it as a kid and you liked it as an adult.
Yep.
I had written down, if I had seen this as a 5-year-old, I think I would have loved this movie.
Okay.
And that love probably would have extended to now. But having never seen this movie and this being my first watch, I didn't know this existed. I think that hurt it.
Okay.
But I will echo the sentiment that Jon Lovitz is easily the best part of this movie. He is putting on a clinic for like chewing the scenery and just going for it in every scene that he's in. So he saves this movie, if you can call it that. I agree. The set pieces are a lot of fun on the planet Spengo. The creature designs are actually not bad.
Mm-hmm.
They have some really interesting creature designs, and the like puppet work is pretty good. This movie is kind of Pee Wee Herman meets Beetlejuice meets Spaceballs in a way, because obviously set in space. But yeah, I definitely got a Pee Wee vibe from a lot of the harsh angles, the weird set designs, the weird costumes, the creatures as well, being more of like the Beetlejuice side of things. It wasn't a big hit for me though. I think the humor is great for a child, not great for an adult. There was a couple parts that made me laugh, I will say, but overall, I think I apparently this movie is a cult classic. We're finding out. I had no idea, but a lot of people apparently love this movie. Someone said it hit them in the nostalgia, so that's interesting to find out. I learned something new about this movie, and unfortunately, it wasn't for me.
Yeah, I would be remiss to say what Dan is referring to is that we had posted a video on our TikTok, which has, for us, blown up in terms of just a short clip of Jon Lovitz trying on some fake goatees and mutton chops, and people have responded to it a great deal. I think it kind of reminded people that this movie existed from their childhood. So, and if you're listening to this after seeing that, welcome to the show.
My wife said, "You better be careful tonight with what you say."
Yeah, try not to drop the hard R, guys.
That wasn't part of the plan, but I think that it really put the movie into a different light for me. As I was watching it, I just was like, yeah, I don't get it. I don't see what's going on here. But seeing some of the comments, it made me think of, this is people having seen it as a kid, remembering it. So that's where it missed out for me.
Mm-hmm. All right, Mark, where are you coming from? Mom and Dad Saved the World.
Yeah, so I'm probably kind of in the middle of you two in terms of seeing this. I have seen it, but I didn't know this was the name of the movie. Because there were scenes that popped up, especially when they get to the planet, that I was like, oh yeah, I've seen this movie. And it was, as Ann said, I had just as much fun watching it, and maybe it was the nostalgia wave coming back, where I had clicked with it when I was younger. Because as he said, they played on HBO all the time. So I've told the story a bunch of times on the podcast. My one aunt and uncle were obsessed with, and they would tape every single movie that came on HBO on VHS, and had a little library in their house. So that is probably where I picked up, seeing this. But the first thing that came to mind watching this in 2024 is I don't think they can make a PG movie like this anymore in terms of the costumes of some of the people, especially one Kathy Ireland. It's just that they would make this a PG-13 is what I'm saying. In today's climate, with that, and it's always kind of fun to see what that line was back then. But outside of that, a lot of the great vibes, not to belabor the point, but Jon Lovitz is great in this. I'm always a fan of Wallace Shawn. And he won the lottery somehow and was able to make out with Kathy Ireland in this movie.
Yeah, good for him.
Yeah. And before
he got paid for that.
Yeah, he got paid to do that. And she got paid double.
Yeah, probably. I hope.
Hazard pay.
Yeah. Because she didn't get paid for it. Because she definitely didn't get paid to deliver her lines.
Ooh.
Man.
I made a joke at work about it. Is that it was the first time that I've seen where you could really tell that somebody was like reading cue cards, because it was like the way she was saying her lines was like as they would be written across paper, the stiltedness of it. And I made the joke like, what would happen if they needed to switch the pages and the guy didn't do it fast enough?
Thank God it's not International Women's Month.
But it was just funny in that. getting her in this movie at that time, helps sell the movie. But I think the number one thing I was going to lead with, before Dan brought it up, was the practical effect creature design, including all the people that live on Spengo, was top notch. The fish girls, the bulldogs, so much personality without really saying a word, which is very, very hard to do. And I left part of the movie going, I want to know more about. I want a movie about those people, because it was interesting. Like, what happened to that girl's husband? Did they get, did they work it out?
They got back together.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I meant as I was watching the movie, like,
Okay.
my head stopped worrying about mom and dad saving the universe, and I started becoming invested in the side character story. And I think that's just a testament to the puppeteering, as you said, making them feel very, very real.
Yeah.
And yeah, I think this movie, because I don't know how it did. You'll tell us in a second, Anne, how it did, money wise. But
Yeah,
I feel that if this came out a couple years earlier, it might have done much better. Just because it felt like a movie written in the 80s, that was filmed in the early 90s. So that was the number one thing I got. But I also love some of the things from the movie that you don't think about, with how technology has gone today. And you just see, the wearing of, like, the way I think he was going to, like, use a lighter to help her with the flash or something, on the camera, and just little things like that. I was like, oh yeah, that you used to have to do weird shit like that. But overall, the plot was fine. I loved. I'm a big Idiocracy fan, so when they go meet the other tribe in the desert, and he breaks their whole worldview by just asking one simple question, is something that's straight out of that movie, and it was really good. But yeah, overall, I like this movie. I think you could get a younger audience to like it even now, just because of mainly the puppeteer work, and the creatures. But I don't know what sacrifices you'd have to make, because they would want a lot of this to be computer CGI if they made it today. And I think it loses a lot of its charm if you do that.
Definitely. Yeah. I agree. I think it probably goes full CGI.
One thing we need to bring up is the light grenade scene, which I think is fucking hysterical.
Yes.
It just works.
That was one of the parts that made me laugh.
I had slightly forgotten about that. That was going to be another one of my examples from Idiocracy, where
when the one soldier radios that they need backup, I thought that was funny.
Yeah, the second when the general gets sucked in, it was my favorite part. He's like, "There's a light grenade. Where is it?
Right here.
Right here."
I think, for a kids movie, I feel like that pushes it a little much, like pushes the boundaries, because you're watching people disintegrate essentially.
Well, their clothes just
they disappear.
It's not it's not Avengers where they go into dust particles.
We watched security guards shoot themselves in the head.
Yeah,
this movie too.
The security guards from Terminator 2.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the light grenade is probably the best bit in the movie for kids that they would just laugh at constantly.
Yeah.
Yeah.
There, as an adult, one of the things that got me pretty good was the end scene when they start to sword fight, and it's just so, and they just start just flicking their wrists at each other, and the whole time it's just Jon Lovitz like, don't. It's so pathetic. It just makes me laugh so much. But
and then when they actually hit the metal, and they go,
I like how they hold to that being very realistic, right? Because Jeffrey Jones' character has never had a sword fight in his life, and Jon Lovitz is just a big wimp.
Yeah.
So it
and
definitely,
they're both middle-aged men, both middle-aged, out of shape men, just that need to take a breather at some point during the sword fight.
Speaking of middle out of shape men, we see a good amount of Jon Lovitz in this movie. Just,
Yeah.
if you know what I mean.
He's got shows his whole belly, right?
Mr.
Yeah.
Jon Lovitz in his
Yeah.
tights.
Yep. And he's wearing a girdle at some point.
Yep.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And
very, very brave of him.
his
Yeah,
line reading during again at the end scene when he's announcing his plan to blow up the Earth with General Afir in the middle, the through your belly, when he's like through your belly, just made me laugh so much.
Yeah,
yeah.
there's definitely some good humor in this movie. It,
Yeah.
it wasn't what I was expecting, though.
It's
I-
very weird.
Yes, I thought it was going to be Jon Lovitz coming to Earth,
Hmm.
not the other way around, with Terry Garr and Jeffrey Jones going to their planet. But
Yeah.
I guess it works more this way than it would have on Earth.
I think so.
Yeah. I love how the Trojan horse scene is a double-sided joke, where it gets brought in because he's like, I got to show everybody how much this doesn't look like me. and they bring it in, and then Jeffrey Jones inside, like, all right, how do we get out? We've sealed this tight. Nobody is getting out of this.
I like how the door to the hall is just big enough to let the Trojan horse in.
Yeah.
It's like the biggest door in the entire place.
There is one thing from a storytelling standpoint that I really like, and it's definitely not something in a kids movie that is even necessary, but it was like, oh, you know what? I see what they're doing here, and I appreciate it from someone that wanted to be a writer at some point. In the beginning of the movie, they're on the way to Santa Barbara, and Terry Garr is talking about having fun on their trip, and Jeffrey Jones says he's not interested in having fun, and he points out very specific things that he does not want to do. He doesn't want to dance. He doesn't want to eat exotic foods.
Yeah.
And when he's with the tribe, he eats exotic foods and he dances. So I was like, it was a nice little callback that is more writing than this movie needs.
Not deserves.
And I appreciated that.
It's a character arc. It's great.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think it's it's not the sum of its parts. You know what I mean? Like, this movie has decent jokes at times, a decent cast.
Yeah. It's a solid cast.
Yeah, they couldn't put it all together, I think. I think what makes it lacking for me is the middle-aged cast. Again, they're funny as a kid. Are you really pulled in by Jeffrey Jones as a lead? Are you really pulled in by Jon Lovitz? Most kids don't know who Jon Lovitz is.
Right. I think his performance would bring them in. I think Jeffrey Jones is the big miscast in this.
Yeah, I mean, he's supposed to be kind of a wet blanket, right? So I think he achieves that pretty well. Yet there is a marketing a children's movie that is a predominant cast of actors that they aren't going to know, is not anywhere close to their age range, is a tough sell, and that's probably why this movie didn't do necessarily well. I believe in the trivia it does say that it was maybe supposed to skew older at the inception, and then was maybe rejiggered to become more kid friendly. I think it said something to that effect.
Okay.
Which I could see. I don't know how, I feel like, I don't know. I think part of the reason why I like this movie a lot is the nostalgia, so I don't really know if this movie skewed older that it would be nearly as enjoyable to me, at least. I don't know.
Sure. I see where, as a kid, people would like this, right? It's got colorful set pieces, very silly humor. It's got the puppeteering. It's got some very weird visuals. So that would pop to kid, and in the 90s, that's what we were used to. Those kinds of images were very commonplace.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So, Mom and Dad Saved the World from 1992 is directed by Greg Beeman, who directed License to Drive, Problem Child 3, Bushwhacked, and 2 Disney Channel original movies, Under Wraps and Brink. Stars Jeffrey Jones, Terry Garr, Jon Lovitz, Thalmus Rasuala, Wallace Shawn, Eric Idle, Dwyer Brown, Kathy Ireland, Michael Stoyanov, and Danny Cooksey. IMDb score of 5.3, Rotten Tomato score of 12%. Budget $14 million.
Ooh,
Box office $2 million.
Yeah, there we go.
that's unfortunate.
Yeah, I had my first, as I like to call it, the Leo from Once Upon a Time in Hollywood when the older brother from Blossom showed up
Yep.
in the movie. I was like, oh my god, it's that
Yeah,
guy.
bro.
I was upset that Budnick didn't have more of a role in this movie.
And then
Yeah.
Budnick shows up, and I'm like, who else is in this movie?
Right.
Yeah, we also got Kevin Costner's dad in Field of Dreams playing King Raph's son, Dwyer Brown.
Dwyer Brown, yeah. That's right.
Yeah, and I believe Dwyer Brown, which is where I would have known him from, is the villain in The Cutting Edge. He's her former partner.
It can never be a normal reference with you, Mark.
Nope.
It couldn't have been Field of Dreams.
Nope, it's The Cutting Edge.
It's the villain from The Cutting Edge. It's not DB Sweeney,
or more.
who's also plays a black sock.
Yeah.
In 8 Men Out. No, it's got to be Dwyer Brown, the villain from The Cutting Edge.
Well, this is Mark just flexing on us pretty much.
Surprised he wasn't on One Tree Hill.
Well,
that we know of.
no, I'm saying, well, someone else in that movie was in One Tree Hill, but
so do you know how, like, I'm gonna do a little other podcast shout out here, basically. You know how, like, in Red Letter Media, when someone's on Star Trek, they point that out? Yeah. This is Mark's Star Trek.
The Cutting Edge and WB teen dramas.
Yes.
I sometimes will have the most obscure ones, which helps me out a lot for any of those, like, immaculate grid things sometimes.
You guys want to get to the plot?
Let's do it.
Yeah, why not?
All right. Dan, what do you got for us?
Okay, guys, just real quick, please go check out some friends of the podcast. First and foremost, the Top 10 with Tia. That is a weekly podcast with Tia and her co-host Brittany, where they run down top 10 lists. If you've listened to us in the past, we've had Tia on before. She's a lot of fun. She's a great host. So go to geekvibesnation.com, search the Top 10 with Tia. I believe they're also on YouTube. Just search them there. And also, last but not least, our very own Mark Myers and the Game Vault podcast is something you should check out if you're into video game news. So Mark is holding down the fort by himself, and he's killing it. He's on YouTube. He's on any podcast platform of your choice. It is a bi-weekly podcast, and he also streams on Twitch at Game Vault Pod. So go follow him there, where he's playing some awesome games. He's talking the news. He's got you covered.
Okay, great. And we're going to take a quick break, and you guys are going to listen to messages from friends of the podcast. So we will be right back. And welcome back. Now it's time to get into the plot for Mom and Dad Save the World. We open on some credits against a starry sky. And after the credits, we see a map of the universe, and Eric Idle voices over, saying he's the former king of the tiny planet of Spengo. He was ruler until he was overtaken by Todd Spengo, who changed the name of the planet to be named after him. We are then introduced to Todd Spengo, played by Jon Lovitz, as he cracks his head on a pipe as he goes to look over his death ray, which he has basically spent all the planet's money on in order to blow up Earth. I think him hitting his head was a reference to the stormtrooper hitting the head in Star Wars.
I could see that being a reference, sure.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking of when I saw it.
Yeah, I didn't think of that, but that makes sense.
Because then the two twins hit their heads too.
Mm-hmm.
Then Eric Idle also says that it is a planet full of idiots. Spengo's General of Fear, tells him that the exact place the death ray will hit is Woodland Hills, California. So Spengo asks the general to zoom in on the exact location of the death ray will hit. So he does, and the picture shows Terry Garr working out in her backyard, and Spengo becomes infatuated with her. I do like the age appropriateness of all this.
Yeah.
It was a different time.
Yeah. It is funny to me because he sees a shot of Terry Garr, who's working out and is wearing like oversized sweat clothes, right?
Yes.
And then when we go to the tribe is all the hottest people that the planet of Spengo has.
Yeah.
Men and women, everyone are just like models. It's like, I was like, age appropriate. I appreciate that, Jon Lovitz.
Yes.
He then tells General Afir that he wants her brought to him and he will hold off on blowing up Earth until they manage to get her. We then cut to Earth to learn more about the two heroes that will be fated to save the world. And it's Terry Garr and sex pest Jeffrey Jones as the titular mom and dad, as they are showing their daughter and her boyfriend, the other brother from Blossom, vacation slides on their 20th wedding anniversary. Jeffrey Jones can't help but complain about every aspect of the trip to Mexico, everything from the food to the excursions to the bugs in the ocean.
Just the whitest of white.
Yeah.
The food was too spicy.
Even so, they are planning to go to Santa Barbara for a trip for their anniversary. And when Terry Garr tries to get some anniversary dick from her husband Dick, he rolls over and goes to sleep. Next morning, Dick packs the car with very little help from anyone, including his son Alan, played by Danny Cooksey, despite the fact that Marge has decided to pack the entire house for a weekend trip to Santa Barbara. When they head out, and immediately Dick is a wet blanket, saying he's not looking to have fun, he's just looking to relax. He puts up a fight when Marge wants to take the scenic route through Ojai, but ultimately relents.
And here's the first thing in my head, forgot the time period of this movie. I was like, oh man, then they'll have no service. And then I was like, oh no. Modern brain.
Yeah.
At that moment, Spengo tells Afir to activate the Magno Beam, which starts taking the control of the car, winds up pulling the car into outer space. Then Todd gets on the radio to talk to them and tells them he's the Emperor and taking them to his planet.
One thing I liked, or I thought was funny, was how the production didn't bother with pretty much any other planet. Like, so you have Spengo, which is way, way, way across the galaxy.
Mm-hmm.
But when they look at the telescope, the only thing you see is Earth.
Mm-hmm.
There's no other planet in sight. There's no moon. There's no sun. No, it's just as if Earth is the only thing that exists.
Yeah. I wish we learned more about why Spengo hated Earth so much.
Yes. Thank you. Yeah, it makes no sense.
He just has one little line like, you think you're so great.
Like, I'll show you who's big.
Yeah.
I guess that's the reason he's upset about how big we are. I don't know.
Oh, specifically how small Spengo is.
Yes.
He is very insecure about the size of Spengo.
You're right. I think that's the only reason.
My meaning.
Wink, wink.
Mm-hmm.
So this whole movie's plot revolves around a dick joke.
Pretty much, yeah. Okay.
He's a size queen.
Yeah.
Jon Lovitz.
Oh, now we got to find out how tall is Jon Lovitz.
He's got to be
because Jeffrey Jones is he's a tall guy.
Yeah.
Oh, Jon Lovitz is 5'10".
Border
average height. He's an average height.
He's a little bit above average height, okay, sir? You cut that out.
Okay. He's actually younger than I was expecting to. 66.
Oh, okay.
Todd, back on Spengo, tells Afir to prepare for their arrival, specifically Marge's, have her arrival fit for a queen, and then vaguely orders Dick to be killed. They land the station wagon, the guards take Marge and Dick. Afir introduces himself, tells them that Emperor Spengo requests their presence for his wedding. And while Marge gets ushered off to a room by some fish maidens, Dick gets pushed around by some spear-wielding bulldogs into some sort of prison, where he meets a talking rat-like puppet.
How crazy is that sentence?
It is probably the first time that sentence has been written down.
Yeah. Whisked away by fish maidens, poked around by bulldogs.
So Marge gets pampered as she has some coffee with some fish maidens. She shows them pictures of her family, and the fish maidens show her pictures of theirs. Fish maiden talks about how her and her husband are going through a rough patch. Marge says that she'll talk to her husband for her. So, of course, the fish maidens do not speak English. Meanwhile, Spengo is getting ready to meet Marge by fitting himself into a girdle and some very big pants. Dick, in the meantime, is walking around the dungeon when he comes across Eric Idle chained to the wall. While Eric Idle claims to be the former king, he doesn't seem all there mentally, but tells Dick that he has information that will save Earth and the planet of Spengo, but happens to be in his pants. So Dick, sex pest Jeffrey Jones has to go into Eric Idle's pants.
Again, just
he says something about going to prison. He says, "I haven't been in prison that long." It's like, man, these jokes are not aging well.
No, they are not. And again, it just revolves around a dick joke.
Yep. And then Marge gets ushered into a hall and finally meets Todd Spengo dressed like Captain Crunch. And Marge compliments him on his cute little planet he has, which he takes offense to her calling his planet small. And then Marge starts to worry about Dick not being there. So Spengo panics and proposes to Marge. So Marge tells him no and demands to know where Dick is. And Spengo tells her that he's placed in the dungeon. And he's going to milk Dick's mind to find out what it is about Dick that has made Marge fall in love with him. He's going to use that information to get her to fall in love with him. As his guards take her away and brought back to her room, where she is treated as a prisoner by the fish maiden's husband. Dick gets put in the mind-milking machine, and Spengo watches Dick's dreams while Wallace Shawn narrates them. Basically, he just dreams of punching Spengo in the head, his shitty kid Alan, and then Marge. Wallace Shawn starts to freak out, so Spengo puts an end to the experiment and wakes up Dick and then tells Wallace Shawn to execute him. Meanwhile, Marge is talking with the dog husband guard and convincing him that he needs to communicate with his wife, so he goes to talk to his wife. Meanwhile, Wallace Shawn tries to execute Dick with a giant needle of some glowing liquid, but he can't get over the idea of Dick losing the love of his life, so he breaks down and helps Dick escape by giving him his uniform.
I think that scene where Wallace Shawn just lets him go, it didn't make sense to me at the time, because I was like, all right, well, how's Jeffrey Jones going to get out of this? I thought it would be someone would save him and not just Wallace Shawn deciding, oh, I don't want to do this. Like, that seems a little lazy for this kind of movie.
Right, but it pays off by the end.
It does pay off at the end, yes.
Right.
At the time, it felt just like, well, we don't really know how to get him out of here with something wacky happening. Because up until this point, everything has been wacky.
Yes.
And him escaping is just Wallace Shawn deciding against it.
Well, Wallace Shawn doesn't want another person to lose the love of their life.
Yeah.
So Dick tries to play it cool in the halls, wearing a guard uniform several sizes too small. He manages to talk himself out of danger with one group of guards, but then a fear sees him, so he orders his guards to shoot him. Then Dick ducks into some sort of garbage chute like Star Wars, winds up in a sewer with mushroom creatures. Look cute at first, but then they chase Dick trying to eat him. Winds up some sort of chasm and has to jump onto a ladder, then forces himself to climb up. Meanwhile, Marge is trying to sneak around to find Dick and winds up getting chased by the guards to wind up back in front of Spengo in one of his rooms. Dick winds up not far behind, carried in by some guards. So Spengo decides that he's going to shoot Dick in front of Marge. Then Marge tries to convince Spengo that she's now come around on him, and Dick doesn't hold a candle to him. This gives Dick enough time to accidentally escape in an escape pod. Then Spengo has his men shoot sky harpoons at his escape pod. Dick manages to press the ejection button right before the escape pod blows up.
I love how all the things, I don't know if this was the first time it was mentioned, but how everything's very literal. Like the button he hits to escape from the pod, literally says like "get out of here" or something like that. Just driving home like Idiocracy does, just driving home the point that everybody is a moron on this planet.
Yeah. Thinking Dick dead, Spengo tells Marge that if she won't marry him by choice, she'll marry him by force and has her taken away. And Spengo starts trying on some wigs and beards to prepare for his marriage. Dick lands in the desert, hopeless and alone, then gets up when he sees some visions of Marge parasailing. He then gets the strength to get up and save Marge.
Real quick.
Yep.
The scene where Jon Lovitz's Emperor Todd Spengo is trying on the different hairstyles, it hit me. Todd Spengo is Trump now. Right?
Sure.
Weird hair, super insecure, wants to be the emperor.
Yep.
That's Trump to a T.
Yeah. Then Dick gets a bunch of spears pointed at him by a tribe wearing giant bird heads. The bird head tribe tie him up and blame him for being one of Spengo's men and banishing them to the desert and killing their father, King Raph. So Dick tells him that he met their father and he gave him something and it's in his pants. So they take off their masks and immediately know that he's telling the truth.
I thought that part was kind of funny too. Yeah. He does know Dad.
And apparently this tribe is basically all the hottest people on the planet, including King Raph's daughter, Kathy Ireland. So the tribe brings him into their circle and explains to him that they use the masks to disguise themselves as birds. There are no birds the size of humans on the planet.
And a Jeffrey Jones, or Sex Pest Jeffrey Jones, as you said, just says to them, "Do you have birds that size on the planet? No. Then why would they confuse you for birds?" and it's just like
Yeah.
it just crushes their whole worldview.
But it checks out because everyone's so dumb that they might mistake them for birds anyway.
Yeah.
But they don't know that, obviously.
Yeah.
I do like that this tribe is sort of self-aware, though.
Yeah.
They're like, we aren't the brightest. Dick gives them the paper that Raph gave him, and it winds up that it's just a detailed map of the inside of Raph's cell, which is obviously useless. So the tribe is dejected, but Dick gives them a rousing speech about not giving up, and then decides to plan an attack the next day. Back at Spengo's, he's reveling in the chance to blow up Earth the next day with some target practice. And then the tribe gets working on the plan that Dick made for them, and then Raph's son shows him some of the weapons that they've stolen from Spengo's forces, including some laser guns and a light grenade, which makes whoever picks it up disappear.
And a rock.
Don't
forget the rock.
I love how the light grenade, we find out in a little bit, is not just one-time use.
Yeah. The tribe then offers Dick a feast of their planet's delicacy, one of those mushroom things that tried to kill him. And there's a dance presentation in Dick's honor. Dancers pull Dick up and he dances along with them. So now Dick has officially tried weird local cuisine and has danced, 2 things he vowed not to do on vacation. The next day, Spengo tells Afir to give Marge a love potion as he tries some more accessories. He asks his twin guards what looks better, mutton chops or a goatee. One says mutton chops, but Spengo disagrees, so he makes the guard shoot himself in the head. And the other guard also says mutton chops and takes it upon himself to shoot himself in the head. Both dead, Spengo decides they were both right, which is a pretty good end to that scene. Afir goes to Marge to administer the love potion, but he tells her he's replaced it with water, but she must act like she loves Spengo. Afir tells her that Spengo has gone too far. Spengo, go ahead.
I was going to say, with them being a planet of idiots, you kind of have to hope that he didn't actually intend on sticking her in an actual good location, because just squirting water into the wrong area would do a lot more harm than just faking a love potion.
Yeah, I was like, I feel like that might kill you.
Air would kill you, for sure.
Air would kill you. But water would have to be pretty pure, is what I found out in my research.
Yeah, that's.
You can't just get it from the tap.
Putting all that nice fluoride and bacteria into your body.
Spengo walks in to hear that Afir is going behind his back, so he places him under arrest, then gives Marge what he thinks is the love potion. She plays it off like it was really the love potion. And then Spengo gives Afir the same fake love potion and tells him he's going to strap him to the depth ray when he blows up Earth. Then sticks his tongue in Marge's mouth and then leaves, which was gross. Back at the tribal camp, Spengo's men arrive and start tossing it, but the tribe has left and created a booby trap, placing a light grenade under a pile of blankets they've marked as Dick's bed.
The one soldier has a pretty funny line. Like, oh, the Earth male, his head is a light grenade.
So the men, one by one, picking up the grenade, making each one disappear, leaving their clothes behind. Meanwhile, the tribe is moving through the desert in a Trojan horse-inspired giant statue of Spengo. The wedding starts, and the art direction here is a mix among The Wizard of Oz and Dr. Seuss. But as the priest is reading his part, there's a knock at the door, and the guards announce that there's a statue of Spengo outside waiting for him. He goes outside and takes one look at it and is pissed off at the likeness, saying it doesn't look anything like him. Even so, he's flattered enough to bring it inside. Spengo goes back to the wedding with the statue, asking anyone who will listen whether or not the statue looks like him. Inside the statue, Dick is ready for the tribe to jump out and attack, but someone thought it's smart to seal the door so no one could get in. So they wind up having to tip the whole statue over, and the head rolls down the aisle, and Dick pops out of the head. The rest of the tribe starts fighting with Spengo's men, and Spengo makes off with Marge. Dick chases after her, and the fight spills out into the halls as Raph's daughter, Kathy Ireland, wrecks house with her spear, until she is reunited with her former lover, Wallace Shawn. Good for him.
This was he didn't sleep much the night before this scene.
This was definitely the first thing he was looking forward to.
Yeah. He's like, you tell me that I have to be on set for like 3 days, and one of those days I'm just making out with Kathy Ireland.
That's probably what got him to take the role.
I mean, it would work on me.
Oh, any sane person probably.
Mm-hmm. Spengo takes Marge to the laser room and ties her up. They strap Afir to the laser with the plan that the laser will go right through him on its trajectory to Earth. Then Dick manages to break a window in the hall and climb outside to where the laser sticks out of the side of the building. He and Spengo plan a sword fight. They fight for a bit the way middle-aged, out-of-shape men would. Eventually, Spengo grabs a hold of the mini laser he uses for target practice and starts shooting it at Dick. But in the meantime, Marge has managed to cut herself loose with one of the swords and surprises Spengo and hits him in the head. And that's one of my favorite line readings from Jon Lovitz too, when she's like, "Oh Todd," and he's like, "Marge," like he did, like he was like surprised to see her, like he was like two childhood friends meeting at a class reunion, and he was surprised at what she looked like.
It's again, I think Jon Lovitz very, very much carried this movie. Everything he does is it's him being over the top with it.
Yeah, there's like scenes where he does like little dances for no reason in excitement that just gets me too. He's really good in this movie.
Yeah,
and
he's usually a lot of fun in any movie he's in.
Yeah, he's great. Wedding Singer. He's got one scene, fantastic.
I was just gonna say the Wedding Singer scene where he's losing his mind and I'm reaping all the benefits. It's great.
The one episode of Seinfeld he's in,
That's
like
a good
the
one,
"Good
too.
for you, Jack" is a line that just sticks in my head.
That's a fun one. Like you said, The Simpsons. He's in a few episodes of The Simpsons.
Yep.
Obviously the critic.
Yeah.
It stinks.
Yes, Mr. Sherman. It stinks. Everything stinks.
There's one episode. There's a director's commentary or a writer's commentary of one of the Simpsons episodes. I don't remember which one it was, and he's actually on it with the writers, and he makes a joke about Phil Hartman because they're like friends.
They were best buddies. Yeah,
they're best buddies to the point where he beat up
Andy Dick.
He beat up Andy Dick, which is great. But he makes a joke about Phil Hartman, and then he like follows it up with, "And if I'm lying, let him walk through the door right now." Obviously, Phil Hartman had been dead at that point.
He's great.
Yeah, he was always fun to watch. If he showed up on something, I would enjoy seeing it. And he's kind of he shows up now every now and then. He was on an episode of like Bill Burr's podcast, and he was really funny in that. I think he's still around. He's still hanging.
Yeah, he hasn't gone MAGA chud yet.
Thankfully,
like Rob Schneider.
Yeah. Well, I'll save that for after the podcast. So we'll just because we would just go on and on.
They surprise he gets hit in the head, and then she and Dick throw him down the garbage chute, where he is presumably eaten by the mushroom people. Dick manages to stop the death ray right before it goes off. Hence the title of Mom and Dad Saving the Earth. Everyone celebrates as Spengo is no more. King Raph is freed and manages to reverse the Magno Ray to send Marge and Dick back to Earth. Fishwoman and the dog have patched things up. Kathy Ireland and Wallace Shawn are together again. They say their goodbyes and get back in the car. King Raph sending them on their way back home, dropping them off back on the Ojai Highway. They get back home in the crazy Spengo wardrobe with the car looking pretty worse for the wear. The kids don't quite know what to say. So they show them some slides of their trip, and it just leaves the kids even more confused. At night, Dick and Marge celebrate on the roof with some champagne where they presumably fuck. And that is the note that ends Mom and Dad Save the World. Fun time for me.
Yeah.
Most likely because of nostalgia. There's a lot of scenes that when they were happening, I was like, oh, I do remember this. And the pick me up line was going through my head with the light grenade through most of the movie until it eventually happened. But yeah, it's a weird little movie, but it's enjoyable, at least for me.
I think my favorite line in the movie, we haven't brought it up, but my favorite line in the movie is when Dick and Marge first get abducted and they're flying past Saturn and everything, and Dick says, Marge asks him a question, and Dick goes, "What do you want me to do? We have half a tank of gas, and we have to check the oil. We're halfway through the galaxy." So that's such a dad thing to say. We have half a tank of gas. But I found myself really fascinated by this movie. I didn't hate it. I was more fascinated by who this was geared towards. And because again, it would make more sense if you had maybe more age appropriate people for what they were trying to accomplish. Because again, if you're a 5-year-old, are you really like, oh, the new Jeffrey Jones movie came out?
But Jeffrey Jones would be interested in you, the 5-year-old.
You're right. And obviously Terry Garr, very funny. Was the Young Frankenstein.
Mhm.
But again, like, what kid probably knew of Terry Garr?
Yeah.
I get, maybe some people knew Eric Idle from Monty Python, Wallace Shawn from The Princess Bride, possibly. But yeah, I don't know if there's too many recognizable faces for kids.
Mhm.
But now, obviously, you look as an adult, you see them. Oh, I know them. Yeah, that's interesting. And again, I didn't know this existed, so I'm glad that I watched it.
Yeah, 5-year-olds like, hey, that's the villain from The Cutting Edge.
Yeah.
Mom,
There's dozens of us.
Can we go see the movie with the villain from The Cutting Edge, please?
Remember Toe Pick?
Mark, I'll always love you for this. You're just out of the box suggestions and all of that.
I've
It's
seen
great.
way too many dumb movies and shows too, and it all stays up in the brain.
Perfect for this podcast.
Yeah. Dan's the exact opposite. Forgets every movie we watch.
Forget everything.
Just a clean wipe of the hard drive every night, right?
Yeah, absolutely. I don't want anyone seeing what's on there.
All right. Well, you learned a lesson from Jeffrey Jones.
Oh, I put that on a T for you, Ant.
Yeah, so that's our episode on Mom and Dad Save the World. We have one last segment left. It's going to be a fun one. But before we do, we're going to take a break, and you guys are going to listen to some ads to pay those bills, and we will be right back. And welcome back. Now it's time for our third segment, and this third segment is Recast It. We are going to recast Mom and Dad Save the World for a modern audience. So I've got a few here. I don't know how many characters you guys have recast, but I'm assuming we all have Mom and Dad and Todd and maybe a little bit more.
I have 4 others.
I have pretty much everyone that is of note.
Okay. I've got Dick, Marge, Todd, General Ophir, King Ruff's kids, and Cyborg.
As do I.
Okay.
Yeah, I have Mom, Dad, Todd, the King and his kids, and the General. That's it.
Okay. Cool. All right. So let's start with Dick. Who do you guys got? Dan, why don't we start with you? Who do you have as our titular dad?
Okay. So obviously in the 1992 version, it's a very mediocre white guy, just a very generic looking white guy, right?
Mm-hmm.
So in his 40s, we'll say. So I'm thinking, who is a perfect generic white dude in his 40s? And I landed on Ed Helms for Dick Nelson.
Ed Helms. That was a name that I had kicking around my head too. Yeah. All right. Mark, what about you? Who were you going with Dick?
Same idea. I was thinking in the same age range, and I was thinking somebody that could bring a little bit more to the role than Jeffrey Jones did, and play up the comedy a little bit better. So I went with Zach Galifianakis.
Okay. Yeah.
Because I feel like he could do more in the scene with the kids, especially when I get to who the.
Cool. Yeah. I actually had him in mind for Todd Spengo. Okay. And it didn't wind up being my name, but I did have him thinking in the running. For my Dick. That's a weird way to say it. It's a weird way to put it. For Dick, aka Dad, I went with someone that's a little more formidable, I suppose, but also good with comedy. And I went with Nick Offerman.
There we go.
Wow, interesting.
Yeah.
I like
with or without the mustache, I'm not sure. I feel like it might be a mustache-less performance for Nick Offerman.
Because he's supposed to be wimpy.
Yeah.
Right. And
I was leaning more towards not necessarily wimpy, just middle-aged, kind of crotchety.
Okay.
Yeah.
I think the mustache works then for the crotchety.
Yeah, maybe it does. But yeah, it's just like kind of self-serious, you know. Mm-hmm. I don't want to dance kind of thing. Like I just want to be left alone, sort of Ron Swanson vibes. I want him bringing.
Yeah, he definitely embodies that. No, like just leave me alone vibe.
Mm-hmm. Okay, so Marge. Dan, who is your Marge?
Okay, so my Marge is someone who, and I'll explain why in my next pick, but I picked a Marge who can do a little bit more action and be a little bit more rough and tumble than Terry Garr. So I went with Sandra Bullock.
Okay.
And again, I'll explain why in my next pick.
Oscar winner Sandra Bullock. You don't need to, be ashamed.
No, and also Razzie winner.
Yeah.
Miss Congeniality's own.
Yeah.
Again, you'll see why I picked her in my next explanation.
Okay. Mark, who you got for Marge?
Yeah. So with Marge, what I very much felt like with Terry Garr is this character needed to be someone that could just float in and out from the different energies that she's surrounded by in this movie, between the Todd and the dad, the other little creatures. And I feel like somebody that can sort of be very adaptable. I chose Kristen Wiig.
That's a good pick. Yeah. It's got very
I think-
interesting energy. Very specific energy from Kristen Wiig.
Yeah, and I feel she can bounce off everyone. She's not set in being, one distinct type of person that would clash anywhere.
Definitely.
Sure. For my Marge, I went with someone that spent a few years as a mom and kind of bounced off an idiot and also a curmudgeon for a while. I went with Julie Bowen as the mom.
Oh, very good.
Very good.
Julie Bowen, she was in Happy Gilmore?
She was, yeah. Obviously, more recently, she was in Modern Family as, I guess, the daughter of Ed O'Neill, the wife to Ty Burrell.
Yes,
So,
that's right.
Yeah,
good pick.
Thank you. All right, next up is Todd. Dan, who do you have for Todd Spengo?
Okay, so here is where I'm going to blow your minds a little bit.
Okay.
I guys, I hate to tell you this, but I went woke. All right.
Oh man.
I went woke. I gender swapped Todd Spengo.
Man.
So I went with Queen Todd Spengo, Kristen Wiig.
Interesting.
So yes, in this movie, Kristen Wiig is trying to win over Ed Helms, and that's why I chose Sandra Bullock to be basically the main hero of the movie. But as Mark said, Kristen Wiig embodies a whole lot of different energies.
Mm-hmm.
She could absolutely play the goofball, insecure, wannabe dictator.
Sure.
Yeah. I feel she could play just about every one that I have on this.
Mm-hmm. Well, we know whose movie is going to go broke.
Guilty as charged, guys. I would imagine it would do better than the 1992 version, at least.
$2.1 million in the box office. All right, Mark, who's your Todd?
Okay. I have no idea why this person really popped first in my head, but then I couldn't get him being Todd out. I needed somebody that had very his energy is very he has undeserved charisma. So I went with Todd being Pete Davidson.
Interesting.
Okay.
Yeah. Meaning the whole time you're like, no, there's no way. And
Sure.
sort of he could do a lot more of the uncomfortable seducing.
Sure. Yeah. I could see a news article being like, Kristen Wiig spotted with Pete Davidson last night in Nobu.
Yeah.
Nobu. Yeah.
Just the memes. He can't keep getting away with this.
Yes. that was what kept it in my head. It's like it's the perfect dictator. He's got a love potion.
Mhm.
It surprised me when I was doing my research on this. Kristen Wiig is 50 years old.
Yeah.
She looks great.
Yeah. How old is Sandra Bullock? She's got to be
Sandy's in her
almost
mid-50s.
60.
I think, yeah, she's in her 50s as well.
Sandy. Do you know her? Sandy Bullock?
Sandy
She's
Bullock?
59.
59.
She's 59.
I think Ed Helms is also in his 50s or late 40s. He's got to be late 40s.
I want to say he's late 40s because I feel like when we covered The Goods, we were flabbergasted that he was like 28.
That's true. He was very young in that movie.
Yeah. He's 50.
Okay, so they're all within that same age range is what I was kind of going for in their late 40s or 50s.
Yeah. Okay, for my pick for Todd, I wanted to go with, as Mark said, someone that has kind of that unearned charisma or confidence. I wanted someone that's a little bit flamboyant, that could kind of match Jon Lovitz's energy. on some of the line readings, but not mimic, but make it his own. And I wanted to do someone with an accent, so I went with Matthew Berry from What We Do in the Shadows.
That's a good one.
A great
That is
pick.
yes, very very good. I wish I could do a good Matthew Berry impersonation for when he's asking the guards
Mhm.
the mutton chops or goatee. Well, yeah, that's an awesome pick.
Yeah. Now I'm not gonna be able to unhear Matthew Berry delivering those lines.
Maybe we could reach out to him. Hey, Matt, do you think you could cover this line?
All right. Let's go with General of Fear. Everybody's got a General of Fear, right?
Correct.
All right. Dan, who's your General of Fear?
All right. My General of Fear is a man that I deeply admire. I have said this before, and I will say it to my dying day. If you add him into a movie, its coolness goes up by at least 50%. And that man is Keith David.
Yeah, that's pretty good. Yeah.
It's just one of the best voices out there. Very underrated. With
Yeah.
the voice talent.
He could have been General of Fear in this movie.
He could have been.
All right, Mark, what about you?
I went a little bit of the younger side to have someone sort of match the age energy of Pete Davidson. And I went with Donald Glover.
Okay.
I feel he can play awkward really well, and I think you kind of need that next to the Todd character.
Okay. No, it's good. Yeah. For a few, I had Andre Brower in my head, but obviously he's passed on. But I went younger, and I went with Lakeith Stanfield as my General of Fear. All right. Next, who is your King Raffs? Dan, King Raff.
All right. So again, I'm switching it up here. I'm gender swapping. I'm going Queen Raff, and I picked Michelle Pfeiffer to be my queen.
Interesting. Yeah. I always like seeing Michelle Pfeiffer pop up and things, so I'm not going to argue.
I agree.
Yeah, I think she's kind of made a comeback as of late, and she's generally well loved. I think she would be a good pick for this.
Yeah, got a real feminine energy coming out of your movie. Yeah.
That's female is the future, right?
Yeah.
Future is female.
We're going to call this Ghostbusters 2016 Part 2.
Part 2.
All right. Mark, King Raff, who you got?
So I went with I needed someone to have the same energy as Eric Idle in the way he delivered the lines. And I was originally my first choice, but would have been a little too off the wall. But I was originally going to say Brennan Lee Mulligan to play King. But I thought, no, let's go a little bit older, because when I came up with the Prince, I couldn't pick Brennan Lee Mulligan. So I went with the King. He doesn't do movies at all, maybe ever. So I chose Conan O'Brien.
Okay.
I like that answer. Yeah.
I like that a lot.
Yeah.
Brennan and Conan, I feel, can bring the same energy to the role. But yeah, I just needed that, because Eric, the way you have to present the King as like the idiot of idiots, you need sort of that person that's not afraid to look like an idiot.
Yeah. He was just in a movie not too long ago on Peacock. Yeah. I think from one of the couple of the younger SNL cast members wrote it.
Yes. It was like, please don't erase, or like, please don't delete, or something like that.
Please don't destroy the treasure of Foggy Mountain. Yeah.
Yes.
He was also in Weird, the Al Yankovic story, as Andy Warhol.
That's right. I remember the pool scene he's in.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That's a good pick. I like that. For mine, again, trying to match the energy of Eric Idle and someone that, if I cast them in, probably could also direct this film. I went with Taika Waititi.
Okay.
That fits. Definitely.
That's good. Yeah, if you want to do actor/director.
Yeah. I could definitely see Taika Waititi uttering the line, "Look in my pants."
Yeah, and you got the Matthew Berry connection, What We Do in the Shadows. So, yeah, it fits.
It's
all
nice.
right. All right, King Raff's kids. We all have King Raff's kids, right?
Yeah, those are my last two.
Yes.
All right. So, Dan, who you got? Who's your King Raff's?
Okay, so my son is this is one that I think is really like he's in everything, unfortunately. So, but I needed someone who looked good without a shirt on. So I went with Chris Hemsworth as the son.
Sure.
And for the daughter, I went with someone who is, I think I had trouble finding the pair of who would play the daughter and who could play Sabor, the age difference. So I went with someone who was pretty close to each other. So I went with Amanda Seyfried.
Okay, I like that. I will spoil. I also picked Chris Hemsworth for my son.
He just looks too darn good with a shirt off.
You know what? I'm never gonna complain if he pops that shirt off. Man, got good comedic timing. It works. Yeah.
Yeah. I'd like to see him with a pigeon head on too. So
there you go. All right, Mark, who's your King Raph's kids?
All right, so I'll start with the princess because my prince is a little off the wall compared to what you guys decided to cast. So I went with the same idea, just had to pick somebody that is hot now.
With the shirt off.
Yeah, with her shirt off. So somebody that is just in just about everything nowadays. So my princess is Sydney Sweeney.
Okay.
That was a name we kicked around too.
Yeah. So my prince, I went with somebody because I wanted I wanted to just have unpredictable energy for the prince for some reason. And I felt could play really well with Zach Galifianakis. So for some reason I settled on Tim Robinson.
Okay.
Because I could see the improv stuff of all the different ideas and stuff they came up with, and just the two of them being able to produce some really good things that probably were not in the script between the two of them.
And of course, he looks good without a shirt off.
Exactly.
Shirt on as well. So
yeah. But yeah, that was for some reason that energy of unpredictability was what I felt I wanted in the prince.
Sure. I hear Sydney Sweeney looks good with the shirt off too. So
I couldn't tell.
Good authority. Okay, so for me, I went dumb and hot for both of them for King Raph's kids. Obviously, I just mentioned Chris Hemsworth, and for the daughter, I wanted to go with someone that sounds like she's reading from cue cards, as Mark put it for Kathy Ireland. So I went dumb and hot, Gal Gadot. That rhymes.
Yeah, that checks out.
Not a particularly good actress, but obviously stunning.
Yes.
So
I respect having one of the family in this. Good.
And definitely has that obviously warrior vibe to her.
That is probably what's influencing this. Both Chris Hemsworth as Thor and Gal Gadot as Wonder Woman.
Yeah.
All right. So Mark doesn't have a cyborg, but Dan, you have a cyborg, as do I. Right?
Yes, I do.
Okay. So who is your cyborg?
So I feel bad having done this, but I kept thinking, all right, well, obviously Cyborg was a character actor who is generally not very good looking. Not that that should be the sole reason, but I had to think, all right, who doesn't look that good that would probably be like, oh, he gets to hook up with Amanda Seyfried. So I went with Paul Dano.
Okay.
Not a bad looking guy, but obviously if he were to get Amanda Seyfried, he's out kicking his coverage.
Sure. Yeah. Talented actor.
Definitely.
Yeah. I like it.
Wallace Shawn.
Yeah.
Absolutely, yeah.
My Dinner with Andre. Who doesn't love that film?
Yep.
I've never seen it, so I couldn't say.
Young Sheldon.
Sure. For my cyborg, I went with someone that I feel like is really in the Wallace Shawn zone. Someone that's kind of has a similar energy, but doesn't look like him, but similar energy, I would say. So I went with Patton Oswalt. Cyborg.
That's really good too.
Yeah. I had just recently saw his scene from Parks and Rec when he's speaking to the
filibuster.
The council. The filibuster. Yeah. So that stuck in my head while I was picking these, and that was the deciding factor of that.
Yeah,
I can definitely see him yelling, "Marge! Oh, Marge! Oh, Marge!" That's a good pick. I like that.
Yeah. Throw him a bone, get them to make out with Gal Gadot.
Oh, I'm sure he wouldn't say no to that. Just real quick, I have a special guest appearance.
Okay.
Because with these movies, if you're doing a remake, you have to have at least one actor who comes back.
Sure.
So I have a special guest appearance by Danny Cook
Okay. Who's Danny Cooksey playing?
as one of the guards.
As one of the guards. Okay. Yeah, I dig it.
Maybe the one who says mutton chops and blows his head off.
Sure. Yeah, I dig it.
For the hell of it, my cyborg is Clint Howard. I don't know.
Clint Howard. Oh my gosh.
From Tix fame.
Tick's fame.
Right. So wait, who does he get to make out with, Mark?
Sydney Sweeney.
What do you have against Sydney Sweeney, dude?
I think the casting director could be brought up on like war crimes.
That's a good way to lose Sydney Sweeney too, by the way.
No, we'll do what they did to what's her name? Dakota Johnson, and just let her know that that's who was cast when she shows up to set that day. Like they did with the Madam Web script.
Could always green screen it.
I was gonna say AI would come in for the.
Oh yeah,
the win
yeah.
here.
It wouldn't be. They would not physically ever act in the same room.
Not if she had anything to say about it.
I'm not kissing that.
I don't care if you're a Howard. It does not matter.
We love you, fan of the show, Clint Howard.
Yes.
No offense, but you get it.
Right. Yeah. I think Clint Howard would be the first to say, I don't know if this is right.
Yeah, I would hope. Just for the age difference alone.
Yes. Right. That's probably a good 40-year age difference. 35-year age difference.
So she's like 26, right? I think.
Probably. Yeah. Mid to late.
He's 65, 66.
Yeah. So that's a big difference.
65. Yeah. So he's 39 years old. She is. So yeah.
Yeah. I don't think he would even be comfortable with that.
Yeah. You get it, Clint Howard, if you're listening to it.
Right. You get it. The implication.
Yeah. All right. Well, those are our remake casts. Let us know which movie you'd rather see by checking us out on our socials at TicTamPod on X, formerly known as Twitter, Instagram, Threads. We're also on TikTok at They Call This a Movie. Hit us up at TicTamPod@gmail.com. You could tell us what your cast is, or just tell us if you enjoy the show or not. Yeah. If you got a second, you can go on your podcatcher of choice, give us a 5-star review. It helps us out a great deal. And check us out on YouTube. They Call This a Movie. We post all of our podcasts up there, and sometimes we even post shorter versions of them for your listening and viewing pleasure. So, yeah, that is going to wrap us up this week. The director of Mom and Dad Save the World was Greg Beeman. So for Dan Aquino and Mark Myers, this is Anthony Del Vecchio telling Greg Beeman, well, you certainly made a movie, didn't you? Thanks for listening to They Call This a Movie. Subscribe to us wherever you get your podcasts, and be sure to check us out on Twitter and Instagram at TicTamPod. That's TCTAM Pod. You can also check us out on TikTok at They Call This a Movie.